If we're gonna have people not allowed to go to war at 18, I think we have to either lower the drinking age to 18 or up the draft age to 21.
Welcome back to Georgia on my mic. I'm Zay.
I'm Juan.
And I'm Caroline. This past weekend in Atlanta, I went to the Cherry Blossom Festival in Brookhaven that I talked about last week. It was more fun than I even thought it was going to be, actually. It was a great time. Tons of food vendors, drink vendors, like commercial vendors, really cool, like crafts and different things that people have made. And then also, I didn't get a huge part of the music, but there were some pretty big names there, actually. I know, I think Natasha Benefield, who has a pretty viral song, was there on Sunday. So it was a great event, and it was busy and also free. So I mean, definitely a thing to keep your eye out for next year when it comes around. But this upcoming weekend, another Atlanta United game on Saturday at 7:30, and then the Panda Fest is coming back to Atlanta. I'm pretty sure last year might have been the first year it was back, which is the Asian Food Festival. I'm really going to try to make it out there on Sunday. It's at Atlantic Station, that area, and I've heard it's a great time and tons of great food to try.
No, I spent the weekend at home. I went to the Beltline on Friday night, and it was actually so crowded. I had never been there where it was that crowded, and I've spent a lot of Saturdays on the Beltline. Especially Lady Bird was crowded. I think I walked down really the whole strip, and it was just crowded, just crowded, crowded, crowded. But it was a good time.
It was crowded out there, even with like pollen coming around.
Well, yeah, I think that that day in particular, it I think the pollen is weird because it just comes and goes, I think, in waves. So the pollen on last Friday was not that heavy, at least where I was at. Whereas like now, and this is actually interesting, I don't think it's been really heavy the past couple of days either.
I didn't know pollen stopped people from going to the bars. That's new. That's new to me.
I don't know. Have you guys ever met anyone who's like legit allergic to pollen?
I think everyone's allergic to pollen. Like it's kind of like mold or things like that.
No, it's like so I know a dude who's like absolutely like debilitated by it. Like he doesn't want to go anywhere or go outside. Like you would think he was in a coma, like with how bad this stuff like puts him down. Is that I mean, I'm not allergic to pollen, but is that like uncommon? Are there a lot of people who feel that way?
I think that everybody is allergic to pollen, but I think it really depends on just everyone's individual immune system. So like for me, for example, I'm a person who rarely gets sick in general. Like, I think when I had COVID back in January, that was the first time I had been seriously sick in about 3 years. And so I noticed that around this time of year, I don't ever really have a strong reaction. Like, I can walk around all day outdoors and for the most part be fine, but I may just get a sneeze here and there. Whereas some people genuinely struggle to breathe in pollen.
Yeah, my brother gets really bad allergies and his face will like puff up pretty bad. So I think it kind of just depends on allergies and things like that, but it can vary. But I mean, just with spring in general, it's kind of that way. That's why I think a lot of people, I don't know how the pollen is in Florida, or if that's why maybe everyone likes to go down there for spring break because it does rain quite a bit. But spring break is, I think, for like high schools is happening these upcoming weeks, but for pretty much all colleges was this past month. It got crazy per usual. I remember going to spring break, PCB, and some other places in the past. It's definitely a great time to be a college student.
Yeah, I mean, from my understanding, didn't they ban spring break at PCB because of how crazy students were going?
Yeah, kind of. So what they did was they banned drinking on the beach in March. So kind of eliminates that whole thing. Although I went last year and we didn't have a problem with it. So I think it kind of depends on the week you go, how busy it's going to be, things like that. But I never went, I only went there once, I think. So we didn't have any issues, but it's definitely crazy. Tons of schools out and about. So I know Fort Lauderdale and Miami get pretty crazy. And then it's becoming more common to go overseas too. I mean, I've seen tons of people in Mexico or Punta Cana, even in Europe this year, things like that.
I wonder if like I wonder if the reason that like all colleges aren't universally on spring break at the same time as for like safety. I mean, I know that probably isn't the case, but like when I think about it, for example, my spring break as a law student was about literally a month ago. I think it was the first month of March. I mean, the first week of March. Whereas my sister, who goes to another Georgia school, is on spring break this upcoming week, I believe. So it's really interesting how it's staggered. I don't know how it works, but I think that there's a reason that not that every college student is on spring break at different times. I could be on to something.
That sounds like it could create a lot of chaos on the road. You have like as I guess like as perfect as people want to pretend to be, like there are a lot of people who drink and drive at the same time. So it's like, especially during spring break, that sounds like a disaster. Like, was Georgia ever a spring break spot for anyone? Like, has anyone ever said, you know what, for spring break, let's go to Atlanta? Like, do we have something like that? Tybee Island, maybe?
Yes. So there was a thing in the 90s that was very prominent among HBCUs and black students called Freaknik. And essentially what would happen is every HBCU, like mostly, of course, black students from all across the country would come to Atlanta for this 1 week. And it used to get so, it was so bad that they, I think, eventually shut it down. This was around, I think, Juan, maybe you were just maybe a small child. Like, that's how long ago it was. And me and Caroline weren't even here, but that was something that I know that Atlanta really attracted a lot of college students around spring break time.
Wait, Freak Nick?
But Savannah's also a good location too. So, like you said, Savannah, Tybee Island, beach wise. But I'd never heard of that. So, Atlanta, yeah.
Telling
Usually
y'all,
people go to the
Google it.
beach for spring break, but
Google it. There's actually a good documentary on Hulu about it. It's really interesting because it's like no a lot of people don't really know about it, but it was huge. I mean, it would have people think traffic is bad today in Atlanta. People were sleeping in their cars on the highway. Like that's how insane it was. So I encourage y'all to do your research on it.
Freak Nick. That's okay. Okay, why did they stop it? That sounds like a good time.
They stopped it because essentially what was happening is that the city didn't really know how to control it. Like it was getting crazy. Like so many students would come in. Like I said, people were sleeping on the highway in their cars. Traffic, like I said, traffic was really bad from what I remember from that documentary. Like it was terrible. And I know there was at some point maybe a little bit of civil unrest associated with it, but it was a lot of crazy stuff that was going on. Not necessarily like, criminal per se. I know that was a little bit of it, but just it was unmanageable and the city didn't really know how to manage it, I believe, and I think that's what happened. But yeah, definitely like look it up. It's really interesting.
yeah, I'll have to check out that documentary. Yeah, I think spring break, you see that now sometimes too, just the unrest, and that's why PCD and other places come up with these rules, is because it does. I mean, and it is illegal because a lot of people are under 21, so it is technically illegal to drink. So does get into a lot of those issues, and just a lot of young people around, and especially senior year trying to live it up. But I think that's been a big draw to people going abroad to Cancun, or even Punta Cana, I think is 18, and Europe is 18, sometimes even younger. So I think that's been a huge draw there, is you don't have to worry about the age thing. So a lot of college, I know we've had, even in high school, I had a ton of friends that went to Cancun. Kind of freaks me out personally a little bit to be just traveling at 17 or 18 years old with my friends, but they all made it back safely, thankfully.
Would you guys consider Kennesaw like kind of like university lifestyle, like with regard to that sort of thing, like the partying and whatnot, frats and whatever?
It's not like I would say like as deep as UGA or Georgia Tech where like the frats literally have houses. It became a thing where they would sort of live off campus at certain like off campus housing complexes. But it was very close to it because when I know that when Caroline and I were at Kennesaw, it was kind of that sort of big transitionary era from sort of a school that people would transfer, go a year, transfer to another school later on, to really a place that people were going to stay. A lot of people would agree that Kennesaw is a party school, and it kind of has been for a few years.
It definitely has the parties if you know where to find them.
Yeah, didn't it win an award for that recently? Wasn't there a Georgia school that won a party award? Like I gotta look it up now.
I doubt that it was Kennesaw.
You guys don't go that hard?
I doubt that it was. I don't think so. I think a school that's going to win that has got to have more of a frat and like a sorority presence than we do. But yeah, Kennesaw's growing. It's crazy. They're not. They don't really have enough housing to handle this growth. But I did have some friends stay in Georgia. Speaking of Georgia spring break, some stayed here. Some went to Savannah and did some stuff there. So if your spring break falls on St. Patrick's Day, Savannah is a fantastic location to go to. So there's some options, but
I do know that. I do know that Savannah is a very big destination for St. Patrick's Day.
yeah, it's a little bit more on the expensive side, whereas PCB, Destin, some other places are more appealing to a lot of college students, and myself included last year and prior years, because of the affordability side. From Georgia, it's about a 5 hour drive, so we could all drive, we didn't have to fly. The house and rentals and things are thousands and thousands of dollars cheaper. It's pretty crazy the financial difference. And then, except right now, like driving 5 hours, I'm driving right now and the gas prices are not forgiving on that.
Yeah, well, and this is a thing that's, I would say, becoming less and less unique over the past few years, just with the where the economy is at. And so one of the things that I did, I spent my spring break mostly really just taking the whole week for self-care and just staying local. I did a lot of, exercising in the park, just really getting out in the local community and just taking time to myself. And I think that that's what is the underrated, I would say the more underrated approach to spring break is really taking time. You're a student. The life of a student can be very stressful, especially if you are in a, master's program, a JD, a doctorate program. And I think a lot of the time, we really talk about, going out, going on trips and whatnot. But I think there's an underrated part to just staying local, staying at home, taking care of yourself, and really just having a mental reset.
I agree. I do get FOMO pretty bad though. For anyone that doesn't know, fear of missing out. So I think I would struggle if I saw my friends in like Europe and here I am at home. But no, especially once you get to doctorates and things like that, a lot of times people, if they're out of state, they go home or different things like that. Spring break isn't as big of a thing because you're more in a kind of professional setting rather than a student setting. But there was a big thing that happened in, I think it was in Barcelona this year with a spring breaker, he from Alabama that passed away. And that it's almost every year really that you see an American spring breaker pass away from. I think last year was Punta Cana, a couple of years ago it was Cancun. It's like, and that's kind of what I was saying earlier about it being a little scary to go abroad. There's nothing unsafe, and a lot of these weren't, again, malicious or anything, but it's just you're in an environment you're not used to being in. You're in, they don't, a lot of like, it's definitely English isn't their first language, even if they speak it. So, you add being intoxicated to it, it's just can be a bad recipe of things. And so it's really sad to see. And it's just like, it's really hard turning something that's supposed to be so fun into just a horrible tragedy.
Well, without going too deeply into the war, because we already spoke about that, I think that just in general right now, it's a very scary time to travel abroad as an American, right? Because I mean, unfortunately, due to what's going on around the world, there's, the anti-American sentiment is growing just a little bit abroad. And I think that that's something interestingly that seemed to line up with the timeline of the beginning of everything going on around the world is spring break season. And so not only do you have, all of this, but you also have the DHS shutdown. So it's a lot going on, and I think it's something that, students and just travelers in general really need to consider as we go into, past spring break, but into the summertime as well.
Yeah, DHS has been huge. I mean, I was flying.
Like how long did it take them to fix the TSA?
So it's essentially what happened is that the United States Senate came up with a deal and the House rejected it. And so then on top of that, Congress went on vacation for Easter. So it's not really resolved.
But they pulled funds from some DHS fund. I don't really know where it's been pulled exactly, and also I don't really know why it wasn't pulled a month ago, but it was pulled from somewhere. And so all the TSA employees did get their past two paychecks, and then they're supposed to be getting their third, but it's been kind of all over the place. So who knows when they'll get that? But they're not technically getting paid yet. But that has helped the lines and people going back to work. Yeah, I mean, and I can't blame them missing tons of paychecks, things like that. Like it's in this economy with certain things, you can't pay rent, you can't pay for groceries, it's gas. So it's definitely a hard time. Like Zay said, honestly, with the war and just conflict in general, it's making it scary, but it's just a hard time to travel. Expensive,
Yeah.
tons of flights are getting delayed or canceled. And then with the new administration, the executive order, I think really from the beginning, he put in that airlines don't have to refund you or give you, I think, vouchers for food or certain things that they aren't forced to do now by federal regulations. So you kind of could just be delayed 12 hours or get your flight canceled and pretty much be screwed. So it's
Yeah.
definitely you're seeing the effects of some of the regulations that this administration removed.
Well, I also saw certain airlines abroad, they're canceling straight flights to and from the country that they're in. So I think there was an airline in the UK that literally has canceled flights to and from the UK. And so that's a thing. But also, one thing that we're seeing that is, I think, in a way, very concerning is we're seeing a lot of world leaders. I believe the Prime Minister of the UK and the Prime Minister of Australia have made national addresses saying, look, this is getting worse. Try to, conserve your fuel. Try to be mindful of where you travel, how you travel, and when. And the last time that we've heard several world leaders make a, national address to this level that has made headlines like this for international stakes has been, I think, COVID. So it's starting to it is only a matter of time before it just gets worse. And I mean, we're getting to a point, the Strait of Hormuz has been closed for a while, that we're starting to really see a lot of the effects of all of this on travel and leisure.
Yeah, and I don't think talking about the oil, I don't think Iran's backing down anytime soon from everything that their leaders have said. So it's not a problem that's going to be going away anytime soon. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess like for anyone who's thinking about traveling to the US, and as much as I love this country, right? My parents gave everything up to raise us here. And this country's has its problems, right? But it's got a lot of problems that I'd rather have as opposed to other countries. All of that to say is, I'm not trying to say anything bad about the US, but if you're traveling abroad from other countries, it kind of sounds like the US is becoming less and less desirable for travel in general. Is that what you guys are picking up?
Yeah, I mean, because a lot, as you see, I mean, the reputation of a country matters, and I think that's the underrated part of foreign policy that I don't think that our administration has taken into account is that how you treat people, how you treat other nations really does matter for how what you get in return. Well, what we see is unfortunately due to a lot of the name calling and insulting and really just doing a lot of unprecedented things that we've never seen before from certain alliances, whether that be NATO or our European friends. It's really caused a lot of people to turn their cheek at the U.S. and we're seeing that affect travel because it is becoming less desirable. I mean, studies are already showing that. Sales are down, tourism is down in the U.S. in so many different ways, and it's really in every major destination.
Yeah, I mean, I can't blame anybody, especially with the immigration, how ICE is treating people. If I'm from a different country, this is not where I want to come. Seeing how they're treating U.S. citizens and immigrants and anybody. I mean, the profiling that's happening, it's just terrible. And then I know for a long time, Canada has had us on as like a level 2 or 3 on reconsider travel for the LGBTQ plus community. It's not a safe place to be in a lot of these our cities, and it really is. It's sad that as a first world country that we are that behind to not have to have such closed minded thinking. just to put it bluntly, about that and things like that, that people are scared to travel here just because of being who they are and loving who they love. That's just really a sad thing to see from the US. And just, I thought we were kind of making some steps and bounds and leaps towards the right direction, and feels like we've taken 10 steps back.
Then on top of that, we also are, Americans are higher targets than they were before for terrorist attacks. I don't think it's coincidental, with everything going on abroad, what we've seen, all these kind of scares at the airports. Have y'all been seeing that? About where, these airports are under lockdown for like 2 hours or evacuations. I don't think that is coincidental. And so this is something, it's so many different things that, Americans now have to take into account when flying and when traveling abroad. I would even argue, even just going out to events in your home city, in Atlanta, in New York City, in Los Angeles, and other places. So it's a lot that we as Americans do need to take into account right now.
There's just a lot of people on edge too. I mean, it's stressful times. Like I just said, with the economy, gas prices are high, renting, buying homes is very difficult. So it's just like the job market isn't great. I mean, it's a lot of like high stress situations, and sometimes the worst is brought out of people when they're stressed. So it is definitely not a. It's something that makes you nervous, and especially again with all the other like foreign conflict and just things like that can really, I think, push people over.
I wonder if it's ever been this bad. Like minus COVID, I wonder if, because 9/11 happened in our life, well, in my lifetime, your lifetimes too. I wonder if it's ever been so bad that people are, should be afraid to come to the US for their own safety. I mean, as far as I've known, it's always been a relatively safe place to live or to travel, but it kind of seems like it's getting more and more dangerous the more time goes on.
I think there's some truth to that. I mean, I think that I would never really classify the US overall as a dangerous place, especially compared to a lot of other countries in the world and things that happen. So I think it would be kind of extreme to jump all the way to it being dangerous here. But there's definitely, like I said, groups of people that need to be more careful, and organizations. And I would say one thing within the US that people are having to be a little bit more careful about is speaking online and speaking out. I mean, some of the podcasts I watch, people are talking out and it being actively against either the government or certain groups or things like that, and the like aggressiveness of death threats and crazy things that people send. It's I think you do see that with people hiding behind their phones of being really aggressive, and I do sometimes worry about if they take it to the next level and go attack that person in real life. So it is that part of things that I think is kind of freaky, with just like where we're at with free speech right now in the US and just the censorship and things like that. But I don't think traveling here you're in imminent danger or anything like that.
Yeah, I think domestically, like, it's pretty much okay for most people. I mean, obviously, if you're a part of a certain group, of course, watch where you're going, right? That's always, I think, been a thing. Even you go
Hmm.
back, to the civil rights era, et cetera. But overall, I think domestically, as an American traveling from Georgia to, in Caroline's case right now, Kentucky or, California, it's it's pretty much not really the same, but I mean, it's not really dangerous, but I would say if you are, going to a place that has a reputation, or, you're a foreigner that, going somewhere and, traveling across the US, you have to be pretty mindful right now, especially with our political polarization too. You don't want to get caught up in it.
Yeah, that's kind of what yeah. Well, and it depends on what's happening. If you went to Minneapolis a couple months ago,
Hmm.
that's not safe. So, I mean, it does definitely kind of what you were saying, Zay, is where it depends where you're going. Me going from Georgia to
Right.
Kentucky, I'm doing okay. But you go somewhere where there's some active conflict within our government and within the way they're doing things, it isn't the safest place. I mean, Minneapolis was proof of that, with multiple citizens dying and being murdered. It's just so that's definitely a good point. Of it does depend what city you're going to.
We may have already talked about this, but do you guys think that the world looks at us different, since we've reelected, uh, you know, the president. Like, do you think the world kind of thinks that we're off of our rockers a little bit? Because I know half of the country, probably isn't too far off from thinking that.
Um, I mean, from personal experience, yes, I did quite a bit of traveling last summer, and I can say not only people I knew in other countries, but also Ubers, anyone else was definitely questioning what we had going on over here.
Yeah,
Try to understand and try to figure out. Yeah, no, I definitely think other countries, and I, like Zay said earlier, I think we're seeing the effects of it with trading, with things like that, and I mean, obviously with Iran right now with the with oil, but the U.S. is losing partnerships and things like that because of it.
right. Yeah, I think our reputation's definitely taken a hit, and I think that it's to be said, what has our reputation always been, just given our history and given the foreign policy, throughout the years, and of course, our own issues such as civil rights and immigration nowadays. And but I think that I think the U.S. has always been looked at as sort of this model in the world, at least for the past 100 years or so. And I think that that's changing a lot in a lot of different ways. I mean, and it's visible now, very much visible.
Yeah. I think one of the great things still, there's so many great things about the US. Like, I definitely don't want to, bash us, but it is that we can speak out against certain things that we
Yeah,
don't agree with. So I always love that about our country and things like that is that's not the case everywhere. Is everyone agrees or else. And so it's that
right.
is a freedom that we have that I try to remind myself and never take for granted that we can speak out publicly against our government, against religion or school or whatever it is. You can speak out freely without being in fear of retaliation. So I definitely think while the U.S. has an uphill climb right now with getting back on track with a lot of things, I definitely still, like Mon said earlier, love our country and love a lot of the things that we do and that we're capable of doing.
You know
Amen
what
to
I
that.
don't think we do good enough as a country, as like neighbors and countrymen and women and others. I don't think we disagree well enough, if that makes any sense. So we disagree. We sure as heck disagree with each other on a lot of things. But I don't think we do it I don't think in today's day and age with how polarized things are, we don't do it in a way that like helps us to go forward together. Like if I disagree with you with who the best NBA team is. I mean, it's clearly the Lakers. It always has been, no debate, right? We like just no, it's not. Yes, it is. Here's the reasons why. Blah blah blah. We don't naturally come together and say, but hey, we both have these good things going on about our teams, right? And that's something benign. We don't even have difficult discussions because of how understood it is that we agree with each other to such a degree. And does that make any sense? Am I going crazy? Does everybody actually agree and we can disagree politely? Or is the world actually this polarized the way that I'm describing it?
I think it's polarized because of a lot of things. I think it's polarized because of media nowadays. I think on both sides, if we're being honest, like call it like it is, right? I think the mainstream media, I think a lot of, the way social media, of course, and we know we've had our conversations about that. But there's so many things pulling people apart. But I think that everybody, you know, at heart does have a common goal. But I think that goes back to Caroline's point, though, where, that's as difficult as it is, this is unfortunately the downside of it. That's the beauty of our country is that we can speak out freely. We can all have opinions and disagree and agree.
Yeah, I think you're seeing the polarization a lot more recently with politically. It's just the current administration is very polarizing. The way they speak about other people, the way they insult other people,
Absolutely.
it's so that's a big part of it is anybody naturally, if you call me stupid, I'm going to get defensive. And so I think that's what you're seeing a lot of is either side though is being aggressive and then the other side gets defensive and then they agree to disagree and get nowhere actually because now they're just mad at one another. So it's kind of like when little kids would at the playground or something, when you would tell kids, don't get in a fight, like a fist fight, because it's not actually going to solve anything. you're just going to be more mad at each other. That's what it feels like currently within our government is they're getting in a cat fight and then nothing's actually getting solved and now they're just more mad at each other. So it's definitely we've got to go back to basic elementary school working through some problems and problem solving. So I definitely agree with the polarization and the ability to agree to disagree and respectfully and but also to follow facts. I mean, sometimes you are wrong. That's, I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes like people are like, oh, we'll agree to disagree, and they're wrong. So it's, that's the thing with, like Zay said, with media is it can word things and propagandize and things like that, um, to make things seem a certain way when they're really not. And so that's definitely something you have to watch out for, and not something that's always been a case with media now just becoming more popular and mainstream.
Yep.
And I don't mean to turn this into like some sort of after school special, but if you're having a disagreement with someone, or if like you you're fighting with somebody or are mad at somebody, just remember, right? Like it's okay to say that you're wrong. It's okay to say that you're sorry. We're all people. We all make mistakes. Sometimes you don't catch somebody on a good day. You don't know what kind of day they're going through. And these are the kinds of things that I think would make the world a better place. Especially if you're like, and the best way to practice it, I think, is driving in Atlanta, right? Like there's 100%, if you're on the road for more than 15 minutes at a time, somebody's going to cut you off, right? Or somebody's going to cut you off. Somebody's not going to turn on their blinker. Somebody's going to be driving 15 miles below the speed limit on the very left lane. Just remember, right? We're all people and we all have our off days. Just because somebody's acting like a jerk doesn't mean they're doing it on purpose. And even if they are, like, who does it help to be that mad at someone? That's what I want to know. And I've got my own faults. We all have a friend or a family member we haven't spoken to in however long. But you know what? It's never too late. As long as you're both still on this planet, we can all probably get together and have some sort of discussion. You don't have to be best friends or lovers or anything like that. But it doesn't hurt to say hi. It doesn't hurt to say I'm sorry. It doesn't hurt to say hello. Both of those were the same thing. Yep.
Empathy and humility, I think. I think that's something that, the world does need more of right now.
Definitely. Normalize being able to admit that you screwed up and moving forward from it. But yeah. But great episode this week. Thanks for joining in, guys, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Peace out, y'all.